how the people are doing. So, I've been waiting so long to do this review because there's just so much going on with this smartphone, right? It's just, there's a lot of good stuff, there's a lot of bad stuff, and here's the thing, it's a good smartphone, obviously. No smartphone is perfect. Therefore, I don't really expect everyone to feel the same way as I do about this. Some might feel more positive, some might feel a lot more negative towards this, and that's the beauty of it. I intend to answer as many questions as I can, as objectively as I can. Obviously, some preferences will play a role, just, a fair warning from the very beginning, fair disclaimer. But yeah, here's the thing. I think whether or not you want to buy this device is really going to depend on what you want from your device. And well, that's basically what we're going to take a look at. But before that, let's take a look at the history of Vivo flagships, because I've always enjoyed using Vivo flagships, almost as much as I like to daily drive with my Samsung flagships. That's the way it is. That's how good Vivo flagships have been over the years. But there's also a pattern of inconsistency. I think that's the best way to put it, because let's put it this way. The Vivo X80 Pro, stunning flagship, and I use that on a regular basis. It had my SIM card in it. And then the Vivo X90 Pro came out, which wasn't all that good. And I was a little disappointed in it, it just did not work out quite as well as I would have hoped. Now, I don't remember the exact issues, but I do know that there were problems. Then, right after that, we had the Vivo X100 Pro. Once again, an absolute bloody blockbuster of a device. It just, I had just an absolute sublime time with it. Now, I'm sure you're seeing the pattern here, right? The X80 was good, the X90, not so much. Then we had the X100 Pro, fairly nice. Then we have the Vivo X200 Pro, which has certain issues. Now, I'm not saying that this is to the point that I'm not going to use this. I am using this. It has my SIM card in it and I'm having a bloody good time with it. But there are problems, without a doubt. And that's basically what we're going to take a look at. A lot of those problems are kind of limited to the cameras. So yeah, we're going to have to wait until we get to the camera section, because I'm always going to save the best for last. If you know anything about me, that's going to be a bloody fact. So that was just a long-winded way of saying that we are starting off with the design, as per usual. Now here's the thing. I feel like this is probably one of the weakest Vivo designs that we have seen when it comes to a smartphone. It's really not that good. It's alright, it's usable, it's fine, but it's not good. Not good enough for one of Vivo's flagships. Because I've had some very good experiences, and that has to an extent spoiled me when it comes to Vivo flagships. Because think about it, I'm not complaining about the flat display, by the way. Now, if you have seen any of my prior videos and prior reviews, you would know that, or you would have at least caught on to the fact that I really like form over function. I really like the premium look and feel of curved displays as opposed to flat displays, even though flat displays are more user-friendly. I don't care, I prefer the premium feel and look. I know I'm in the minority, obviously. There's a good reason that almost every smartphone manufacturer is trying to basically go for a flat display. It is more user-friendly and that's what people want. I'm fine with that. I don't mind it. Obviously, I don't like it. It's not my preference, but that doesn't matter here. What I'm saying is this. Most of the Vivo flagships that I've used over the years, they have always had a very unique design language that was basically easy to differentiate from other smartphones. Most of the time, they went for a very elegant, very classy, kind of a posh, formal look. That's the best way to describe it. I mean, if you have seen, used or held the Vivo X100 Pro, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. It also had one of the absolute best, all-time absolute best matte finishes that I've ever held in my life. This, on the other hand, this is a very basic silky matte finish that we have already seen a multitude of times on Samsung Galaxy devices. That's basically what you're getting here. And even the circular camera module, very basic, very centered, very safe. And that's where it gets kind of boring. Like, this doesn't feel like what Vivo would do. They're always out there trying something new, trying to do something crazy or unique. I'm not asking for a lot. Basically, I'm saying if they went for a leather finish, that would work. Hell, that would be unique enough by itself. But of course, on the front, we also have the display itself, which in turn houses our fingerprint scanner. And this is a good fingerprint scanner. Simple as that. It's placed well, it works. It's obviously not like the Vivo X80 Pro. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, the Vivo X80 Pro had a massive fingerprint scanner, which was basically, I think, 3 to 4 times the size of regular fingerprint scanners that we have today. And none of Vivo's new flagships have those, which has always been such a massive disappointment for me. But of course, compared to all the other smartphones that I've used that have the most basic fingerprint scanners, this is on par with those. I've had no problems. It works out just as well, very fast, very smooth, very accurate. It's that simple. But then this display. Let's just say it's made just as well as any other flagship, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's got a 4500 nit peak brightness, which is great. It's also got HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, which is fantastic because, let's face it, if you watch Netflix, Dolby Vision is the one that you want. You don't really care about HDR10 Plus unless you're really into Amazon Prime and, well, any other platform that uses HDR10 Plus specifically. So having Dolby Vision is always a safe bet to go. And the overall HDR experience really nice as well. Like, I honestly don't have any issues whatsoever. And the same can be said for regular videos as well. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, well, it's going to look bloody good. That's the best way to put it. It looks really nice. Simple as that. So honestly speaking, no problems here whatsoever. But if I had to nitpick, I guess it could be about the resolution, if anything at all. Because we have somewhere around like a 1200p-ish resolution over here. And I kind of wish we went up to 1440. That's all there is. Really nothing else. Like, yeah, we still have like a 452 ppi, and that's plenty good enough. Like, you could not tell the difference unless you're using a microscope. Would it have made any practical difference? None whatsoever. So let's move on. Because as nice as the display is, the content consumption side of things is not limited to the display and the visual quality alone. There is also the audio to be considered, and that's where things get, let's just say, mildly interesting. Well, I guess I shouldn't say interesting, it's more disappointing than anything else. Because here's the thing. This has always been a trend, just so you know. It's just become this long-lasting problem that every Vivo smartphone has had, and it's getting stale at this point. It's becoming something that you really don't want to talk about, or it just every single time I take a Vivo flagship and I boot up one of my videos, I'm just slightly disappointed. I'm kind of tired of that. Like, Vivo really needs to handle these speakers, and they need to update them to the point that they can genuinely compete. But now let us talk about performance, because I feel that this might be an area where people might be fairly hesitant because of what we have under the hood. This does not have the latest and greatest from Snapdragon. A lot of the new smartphones that are coming out, like the OnePlus 13, they have the Snapdragon 8 Elite, if I'm not mistaken. I'm 90% sure that's the one that we have in there. But yeah, now look, far as I've seen online based on some benchmarks and whatnot, it would appear that the Geekbench scores were slightly higher on the Snapdragon, around 10-15%, if I'm again not mistaken. And I believe the Antutu benchmark, which is a combined workload, that was actually higher on the Dimensity. So based on that, I'd say it's, in the real world, it's not going to make a difference. However, one place where I feel Vivo actually focused maybe a little too much, to the point that they are almost unnecessarily good at it, is battery life. Now, unnecessary in the sense that my use case basically leaves with a little too much battery left after the day, which, I don't know, it feels a little odd when I say this, but that is a fact. Even when I basically go around and take a whole bunch of photos and videos even, like I've had this one particular day when I took almost 50 photographs that included high-res, and then I also went around taking a few videos. I still had 45 to 44% battery left at night. When I was done with everything and I was about to go to bed and I put this thing on charge, I still have 45% battery left. The battery life on this thing is ridiculous. Maybe if you really wanted to use your smartphone for 2 days straight, which is not something I've ever done, even with my intensive use cases, the 6000 milliamp hour battery on this thing is gonna last you a lifetime. So yes, battery life on this thing, it's insanity given form. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the OnePlus 13 also has something similar in terms of the battery life that we have on the X200 Pro. So it's gonna be bloody interesting when I start to test it out. Speaking of which, I did actually receive the OnePlus 13 today evening. I haven't opened the box yet, but man, I am so obscenely excited for that thing, because there's a lot going on with that. But that's not the topic. Let's get back to the X200 Pro, and this time, no, we are not going back to the cameras, not yet. We are going to talk about the software first. I really like FunTouch OS for what it is. It has extreme levels of customization when it comes to your wallpapers, when it comes to the dynamic effects that we have. It's beautiful. You can play around with basically everything, whether it's the always on display, whether you want your always on display to flow into the lock screen and then the lock screen to flow into your home screen. You can do all that. You have multiple wallpapers that can basically integrate the whole animation, and it is smooth as butter, beautifully optimized stuff. And also, if you want to play around with the fingerprint scan animation, your charging animation, face unlock animation, and so on and so forth, there's customization shooting out through the arse of this thing, and it's beautiful. It is exactly the kind of thing that I want. But one thing that I have noticed as I've reviewed multiple smartphones over the years is that the way people view software is deeply rooted in their personal preference and exactly what they want or desire when it comes to the user interface of any smartphone. Look, the thing is simple. This is a fantastic software experience. If you don't like it, obviously it's a personal preference. And so just like I don't like iOS and basically nothing anyone says is ever going to change my mind, it's very similar for someone who might not like FunTouch OS. So all I can tell you is this: my preferences kind of revolve around having a lot of customizability. It's what I enjoy the most about FunTouch OS, and it's one of my favorite things here. And there's also the fact that it's overall very smooth. None of the customizable features detract from the smoothness and the user experience and the speed. That's the important thing, and that's something Vivo has nailed for basically 99% of the things that we have here. So overall, I have no problems. I think this is a fantastic device, and I think it has a fantastic OS. Not everyone's gonna agree, and that's completely fine. But of course, now we shall finally be taking a look at these cameras. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest here. I don't think I can cover everything about this one's cameras. No chance in all hell combined will I be able to cover everything that this one's cameras is bloody capable of. It's got so much going on, both good and bad. And here's the thing, here's what I'm thinking of. I might just have to do another camera review specifically for the Vivo X200 Pro, because there's just so many options here. Just the software alone is so chock full of customization and options for you to play around with. So if you just enjoy using smartphone cameras and maybe you don't want to constantly tinker with pro settings and stuff like that, maybe you just want a bunch of fun yet very viable presets and filters and so on and so forth, well then that's where the Vivo X200 Pro and basically every single Vivo flagship that has ever been in existence has shined. No other flagship smartphone or no other smartphone that I've ever personally used has ever provided anything that even comes close to it. Like it's miles apart, the difference in customizations and options that you get between the Vivo X200 Pro and any other latest generation flagship you have. It's quite something, and I do hope to cover that whole thing in a separate video because it deserves a separate video. Also because if I tried to do this, then the camera section alone would be like 25 minutes long. So here's the deal with this one's cameras. The ultrawide camera is good. It's fairly nice. It's fairly high quality, but I do feel that the field of view is kind of limited, especially when you have smartphones like the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which have massive field of view and also accompany them with insane detail preservation. It really does feel like it's lacking in the ultra wide department in the very literal sense. Now the 3.7x telephoto camera, easily one of the highest quality telephoto cameras that we have on the planet right now. There's a bit of conflict in that regard as well, because I think Vivo's processing is a little too aggressive sometimes, especially when you're using long range zoom like 10x, 20x, stuff like that. It can get a little weird with the AI processing. Now I do have a camera comparison against the Vivo X100 Ultra, the X200 Pro's predecessor, in essence I guess. But not exactly, it's not an ultra flagship, the X200 Pro, but still. The X100 Ultra introduced this 3.7x telephoto, and I really want to see how this one's telephoto compares against the previous generation. But of course, notice how we weren't talking about the main camera, because that's where things are, let's just say, a little bit problematic. Now on paper, if you look at the specs of the Vivo X100 Pro, then the Vivo X100 Ultra, and then the Vivo X200 Pro, which is this one, you'll notice that both the X100 Pro and the X100 Ultra, both of which are this one's predecessors, they had 1-inch sensors for their main cameras. Sounds bloody incredible, doesn't it? Like 1-inch sensors. It's the norm. The Xiaomi's flagships have it, so it's only natural that Vivo's flagships have it too. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Well, I don't know whose idea this was. I don't know what reasoning there was. I don't know what format of logic was used, or if any logic was used at all, but Vivo decided to downgrade the sensor. Now, in case you're wondering, a smaller sensor will basically cause a certain number of problems. First and foremost, light gathering. The smaller the sensor, the less light your camera or your sensor can gather. There's also the fact with that you're just going to have less quality and less detail in your shots, because the larger the sensor, the better the quality. It's the predominating reason as to why full frame cameras like this one will always produce much better videos and photos as opposed to something like the X200 Pro. And there's also the fact that there's going to be less depth of field. That may not be the biggest issue in the world, but still, it's going to be present regardless. And since we have a smaller sensor, and since, by extension, I'm guessing we have a lower quality sensor, well, the 2x sensor crop definitely suffers a lot. It is undeniably low quality as opposed to what we had even with the Vivo X100 Ultra, and it is undeniably lower quality as opposed to the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which we have tested. Once again, if you're really interested in this stuff, check out the Xiaomi 14 Ultra's camera comparison. The playlist in the description has that video. Now, there is one last area where I think having a lower quality, or a smaller sensor I should say, is having problems or causing problems for the X200 Pro. It's the high resolution 50 megapixel mode with the main camera. Now, the high res with all the other cameras is perfectly fine. They work just as well as you'd expect. But, well, let's just say that the quality of the 50 megapixel mode is very unfortunately low as opposed to what you would have come to expect at this point. I am beyond confident that this phone would not be having any of these issues had we had a good, well-optimized 1-inch sensor over here. But of course, being completely honest, practical, and very, very objective, and also not letting my emotions get the best of me, I can tell you this much. The problems lie only in the 2x and the 50 megapixel high-res. And because of that, I don't think it's a deal breaker. To be completely objective, once again, like, is it acceptable? No. I'm not saying that we should accept it and we should, allow smartphones or smartphone manufacturers to downgrade their sensors to break something that did not require breaking. It makes no sense. Why would you downgrade your own product like that? But look, here's what I really want to know. If you were really intent on buying the X200 Pro, if you liked what it had to offer, and then you realized that, the main camera sensor has been downgraded. But then you realized that, hopefully after watching this video, that the downgrade actually causes very niche problems that may not affect you all that much. Would you still be willing to go for it and buy this phone, or has it just completely destroyed your desire for buying this phone altogether? Because personally speaking, based on my use case, this is not a deal breaker. There are other things that I feel could be deal breakers, especially when it comes to videography. Because the problem is this: stabilization on the X200 Pro. It's honestly just not up to par. It's something that Vivo has always had some level of problems with, but with what I've seen when I compared this phone again in videography against the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, once again the playlist in the description has the video, well, I found that almost every single shot that I took, every single video that I took had worse overall stabilization, and that honestly feels so much more unacceptable as opposed to the main camera downgrade. Because at the end of the day, the main camera downgrade, it won't affect you on a regular basis, but if you can't get good stabilization with 4K 30, which is the most basic camera mode or video mode, well, that just feels like a much bigger problem, doesn't it? There's also the fact that the 4K 60 on this phone is, I think, by far the worst that I've used in quite a few years. It has no stabilization. I mean, that's the only reason you need, right? You just have no stabilization whatsoever. So, I don't know, I feel like Vivo just forgot to program stabilization into 4K 60, because 8K actually has better stabilization on this phone as opposed to 4K 60. But I think the one saving grace for me, at least when it comes to videography on this phone, is that you get really good and high quality log video. Once again, the stabilization is not quite good, but you can use log video from every single camera on the rear, and it works out really well. But with all of that said, here's a little recap. The design, I feel like Vivo has done a lot better, and they could have done a lot better with this, but they didn't. It's very safe, a little too safe and kind of boring for a Vivo flagship, mainly. Then when it comes to the display, it's great. When it comes to the fingerprint scanner, it's great. The software is bloody fantastic in my personal opinion, and yes, opinion does matter in that regard. I know, I'm acknowledging it. Then when it comes to performance, again, very good, stunning. I at least had no problems, that's the best way to put it. And the battery life, pure insanity. No two ways about it. Easily the best thing about the X200 Pro. Which is kind of sad because the cameras is where I am, again, very conflicted. I feel that again is going to depend on personal preference, or rather your use cases. Like, do you use 2x sensor crops? Do you use the 50 megapixel mode? If you don't, then you're not going to see problems. Do you really care about videography? If you do, then you are going to see a lot of problems. So that's the way you're going to have to make a decision. But now you know, now you're informed, and that's what's most important. Well, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed, found this helpful, because that's the whole point, right? I'll see you guys soon enough with many more to come, especially that OnePlus 13 camera comparisons. Cheers!